Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Mines map, or the new Guild Wars map. In this video, I'm going to discuss first is the features of the map, or the Mines map, and then I'm going to talk about how these features affect the different DPSs that we have. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about the different starting positions and which role fits best on that position. So let's begin. First, the Mines map is a medium to small size map that is 13 tiles in length and 11 tiles in width. It's good to note here that the Mines map is roughly half the size of the Fortress map. This is important for later. It has two sections, the outer ring and the inner ring. Let's talk about the inner ring first. The inner ring is surrounded by obstacles and has a huge obstacle in the middle. The huge obstacle makes two choke points where units may clump together and probably get destroyed by an AoE. It has a height difference of 1 all throughout and has a maximum height of 4 and a minimum height of 1. It's good to note that the inner ring has 25 height 2 tiles. That means there's a 50% chance units will land on a height 2 tile. Excuse me. And it also has 22 height 1 tiles. This means there's a 50% chance that your unit will stand on a height 1 tile. The inner ring is a combat zone. Once you step in here, you will probably be targeted. So the inner ring also has the platform where starting point B is located. Next, let's talk about the outer ring. The outer ring has platforms as starting points, starting point B and C. It has an obstacle to prevent early combat, with the exception of course of high cost AP skills such as limit breaks. It has a maximum height difference of 3 and a minimum height difference of 1. So any high cost, high range AP skill can initiate a fight here. So in terms of DPS, how does the map features affect the DPSs and who are at a disadvantage in this map? First, let's talk about rangers and gunners. This map is a small to medium sized map, about, as I've said, half the size of the Fortress. And the max height here is 4. That just adds +1 range tile to the rangers and gunners, and there's no missile attack up advantage. What does this mean? Most likely, rangers and gunners cannot one-hit enemies, but enemies can most likely one-hit them, with the exception of Winter Victora, I think. The plus range 1 only advantage, the map size and the lack of height difference all throughout the map does not play well, or rather makes the ranger's unique ability to increase their range with height useless. This also makes range units encounter melee combat as fast as 2 turns, which is not good considering most range units are squishy. Units like Frederica, Lucia, Nivlu, etc. can take 2 hits at most, but will likely get one-shotted, and these units will struggle taking out tanks like Wall, Agrias, Raldor, and that's not considering the elemental advantages. If you go against compositions with very efficient healers like Lila and Ayaka with capable tanks, you probably won't succeed. The best enemies to go against using missile comps are groups without healers or tanks, and of course evade teams. But for evade teams, there are units such as Laswell and Vinera, which are pretty resistant to missile attacks. And Vinera can cover ground really fast, another reason why missile comps would struggle. My suggestion, if you plan to run range or missile comps, which I've tried, is to most likely drop missile attacks and go for range, so that your unit or range unit won't try to go in the inner ring of the map and stay on the outer ring where they are safe. That's just my 2 cents. It's up to you. The second job that I will talk about is the magic users. This map is really intended for magic users simply because the magic attack buff of the map. This means magic comps can forgo some attack up vision cards for other buffs such as agility or resistance cards to counter their targets. Since magic users covers a lot of jobs, I will be discussing each of the more relevant ones, and I'll talk about the rest of the other jobs as a whole. First, I want to talk about a category, not the job actually, it's a category of bruiser mages. For bruiser mages, we have Ffbe, Raryu, and Garval. Since this map is small, you can get into Dragoon range, missile range, or melee range very fast, which can one-shot squishy units. These mages can take a hit or two and hit like a truck as well. So they are, in my opinion, the best options for this map. Since this map has magic attack up, Ffbe and Garval have an advantage over Raryu, but make no mistake, Raryu can definitely cut a tank in two like butter. Next, let's talk about mages that hit like a truck but are squishy. I'm talking about Sakura and Howlette. I don't have them built, so this might be speculation on my part. But these guys, I would say, have the damage capability as the ones I've mentioned earlier, except they don't have the same survivability as those I've mentioned. These guys might take a hit or two at most without any support items like re-raise or defense buffs. They are the type of mages that you want them to buff first before heading in, so that they don't get into range immediately. Your tank can get into range first, so that you prevent these units from getting sniped. The third jobs or the third units that I want to talk about is arithmeticians. Really, these guys are so versatile. You could almost use them everywhere. If you've noticed on my map discussion, I mentioned that 50% of the tiles in the inner ring of the map is a height 2 tile. This means 50% of the time you can get a damage boost to your height-based damage skills if you use your height 2 passive, which is a lot. So I think this would be the best chance to use the height 2 passive instead of the level 3 passive. So yeah. Also, as I've mentioned in this map, units tend to clump together on the 2 choke points in the inner ring, making AoE attacks of arithmeticians with an area height of 1 to be very useful as a supporting magic damage. In the case of Halloween Leela though, with Typhoon in hand, she can be very well a strong DPS. The reason this is the third job that I talked about is because they don't hit like a truck. They may hit like a bus or a sedan, and they can hit multiple units, but yeah, they don't have the same damage output as Raryu would, or Garval would, or Howlette would against tanks. But the good thing about them is they can play support as well. That's why they're still pretty good. Lastly, let's talk about the others. By others, I mean these are the mages which cannot one-shot other units and are very squishy and do not have any redeeming factors such as guaranteed hit and a lot of AoE attacks. I think they are still viable under certain circumstances and against certain enemies, but I wouldn't entrust them in fighting high-tier teams like teams with re-raises, can one-hit units and have courage. The reason why you wanna one-hit units is so that you can take off that courage or that re-raise as fast as you can. That's why I mentioned that these units might have a hard time here. The next one that I want to talk about are dragoons. If you've noticed, I've always put dragoons in a separate category just because they're really versatile and they work with a lot of maps. And if you haven't built one yet like me, then you're out of luck. Dragoons can really work well with this map just because they're bruisers and have better range compared to melee like slashers or punchers or the pugilists. Movement wise, they don't have a disadvantage in this map or in terms of firepower, but in general, dragoons are weak to magic. With magic attack up, this just means they are more susceptible or receive higher damage or can be one-shot by a lot more units than before. But if you avoid magic units, then dragoons are still as powerful as they are on any map before. Lastly, let's talk about melees, the slashers, the punchers, etc. These guys work well in this map. As I mentioned, this map is small and it takes to make the AI concentrate on the inner ring on those choke points. For melees, I wouldn't say there's an issue with the map, but it more boils down to the meta. A lot of units now can one-hit each other due to death penetration or take a full-blown hit and survive due to courage, shields, and re-raise. So any melee unit that does not have these characteristics or even death penetration will have a hard time facing meta units that plays well or renders well with this map. I'm talking about like the usual ones like Orlandu but Orlandu with Agayon can work well, Ramza, and some other past units that might have been good but might struggle a little bit in this map. Not because of the map itself, but because of the meta. Speaking of meta, we have to talk about evade. Evade is probably the most versatile defense strategy, with the only counter being units with guaranteed hit skills or units paired up with a lot of accuracy. That was a long time ago though. A lot of units being released now have good accuracy, luck, and dexterity. Not to mention we have vision cards now that are packaged with accuracy and attack up. So definitely evade is still viable, but it is more risky to run with that than before, especially if you're going to go full evade squishy team. You can get wiped by a team with high accuracy, high luck, and then guaranteed hit skills. Not to mention, as an evade team, you are sacrificing a lot of firepower to maximize your evasion. Although, yeah, as I've said, evade is still viable, but not as invincible and prolific as it was before. Generally, I would put the DPSs in point A and point C. Point A and C is directly facing an enemy, so the unit in front of you is who you would likely encounter first. This for me is easy because just pick an enemy that your unit would be good against. Simple as that. You will be able to encounter them first. Putting Ffbe in front of a Cain or putting Ffbe in front of a Stern would be a good choice because she can definitely one hit an unprepared Cain or Stern. What if I guess your next question is, what if I'm facing a tank? I think that's fine, because most tanks cannot one hit or dish out enough damage to kill your DPS. So that position is pretty much safe as long as if you pick your enemies wisely. Putting a DPS in point B for me is like suicide. It's the fastest way you can get into the inner ring, putting your DPS unit in great risk. Now let's talk about tanks and supports. Where do they fit? I would put them in point B, or starting point B. As I've said, it's the easiest way to get into the ring for tanks. Any tank here would work well, as it's a map that doesn't require much movement. There's no big range height difference, and it's pretty small. How about supports? I would put supports in the point B here pretty much, because they have access, or easy access, to point A and C in point B. As long as you tweak the AI that they don't rush in, it's a good position since they have control over both points. And if they don't rush in and your DPSs or bruisers are at the front, they can easily support from the back. So that's my 2 cents for healers and tanks. I won't delve in. So here are the demo reels that illustrate my points that I've discussed. So in this demo, I'm showing you my tests for the 3 bruiser options, or the bruiser mages, that I've showed you earlier, and how effective they are in this map. As I've said, or I'm saying just now, this map prioritizes survivability and high damage. That's why they're so good here. And to think that this team has low resonances, and then doesn't even have like complete maxed skills, does so well against so many team comps. But of course, this team is not invincible. They are going to get wrecked by magic tanks, or capable magic tank teams, or other magic comps, especially Halloween Leela. But I haven't fully researched or fully grasped the potential of this team. That I just want to show you how good they are. And this team is probably the ones with the highest success rate out of all the teams that I've tried with this map. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the demo reels, and I hope you learned something in today's video. Thanks for watching, guys, and ciao. Just enjoy the rest of the other demos that I have.